Hello and welcome back to my channel. This is Heather with Creativity by Heather BE, and I am so excited to be back with you today with a 5 cards 1 kit for the March My Monthly Hero kit. This is a great kit. It's all about fish and underwater, and I'm showing you here the background that comes with these stamps and dies because I am going to use that, I believe, in our 3rd card. So for the first card, I am starting out and I'm using the 3 inks actually came with this kit, which I'm showing you here. Sea salt, which I didn't actually end up using, and a reactive blue water and reactive sea glass. So I'm going to be using the Picket Fence Life-Changing blending brushes to add a water scene. And there are several cards that I'm going to use these inks to blend and kind of give me that underwater scene. And I'm not going to show you the blending on every single one of them because it's all pretty much the same. And as always, I will have all of the products that I use listed below. So I thought this one would be fun. There was a sentiment in there that said just keep swimming, and there was a little scuba diver and some sharks. So I thought this would be a fun card to put a little scuba diver in there and have some sharks kind of coming after him as kind of a little funny pick-me-up card that says, you know, just keep swimming. Because sometimes our lives feel like that. We feel like there are sharks chasing us and we just have to keep swimming. So what I'm doing is I'm laying out the stamps, and there were some bubbles that came in the kit, and I was trying to figure out, I wanted to include those as well, and I actually end up not using them, but I am going to use a school of fish that came with the kit. I also wanted to let you know, you can see it kind of looks like there's bubbles or kind of splatters on the ink on the panel. The Reactive Hero Arts ink that came in the kit is exactly what it says. It's reactive. So it's kind of like the Distress or the Distress Oxides. When you spray water on it, it gives you that reactive. You get like those where it picks up the color. So what I'm doing is I'm using my Brutus Monroe embossing ink, and I'm just going in and laying down all of my images. I'm going to do them all in black Raven ink from Brutus Monroe, so I was able to go ahead and just stamp out all my images and then go back in and add the embossing powder at one time. So I'm just adding those on, and this was a very simple card. All I really needed to do was the background, do some heat embossing, add my sentiment, and then I am going to put it on a mat of gold glitter stock. And there I'm using a Nuvo brush, and I actually just recently picked this up, and I wasn't sure if it's something that I would use, and I am using it a lot. So I'm really enjoying that. And like I said, I'll have that listed below as well. So I use the Mermaid embossing powder for the Just Keep Swimming, and I also use a Lawn Fawn stitched rectangle die to give the panel just a little bit of added dimension and interest with the stitches. And I'm adhering that to an A2 size card base of Nina 110 pound, and that is card number 1. I thought this was so cute and would be so great to give to somebody to kind of make them smile who's just feels like the sharks are coming at them, as we all do tend to feel that way. So for card number 2, all of the fish and all of the stamps in the set, they're all solid. So I decided to go through, I have a bunch of little Hero Arts ink cubes that I've gotten from kits and just from different Hero Arts things. And so I went through and picked out just a variety of bright colors. So that way I could kind of create a little scene. And I'm also going to use, I got the add-on embossing powder for this month, and I'm going to use that for my background panel as well. So I wanted to do a birthday card. And so I wanted it to be really bright. I wanted to pick rainbow colors and just kind of have a fun, bright, cheery scene. So you can see there are all the stamp pads that I picked out. And I didn't keep in all of the stamping. I'm going to show you just one. And the reason I left this in is to show you that my stamps are relatively close together. And what I love about mini ink cubes is I stamped all of those and the colors didn't touch each other, which is great. So that's one of the advantages of having the mini ink cubes. So once I had all of my images set aside, I went ahead and I am completely covering a piece of Nina 80 pound solar white cardstock with Brutus Monroe clear embossing ink. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the embossing powder that was an add-on with the kit, and let me grab the name of that. It's a really cool embossing powder. It's, as you can see, it's got like blues and whites that run through it. It's called Sparkling Sea is the name of it, and you can get it separately. So as an add-on, so even if the kit would happen to sell out, which I believe the kit is still available at the time of this recording, you can go ahead and get the embossing powder, which is this beautiful white and blue color, and it almost has like a sandy texture to it. So there you can see that gorgeous background. And I've die cut all of my fish and images out, and I love the Hero Arts kits. They're such a great value because you get dies for everything that comes in the stamp set, plus additional dies, which is for $34.99, you just get an incredible amount of stuff for that cost. So I'm going through it, and at first I was just going to kind of lay everything out. I knew I wanted the Happy Birthday Fishes sentiment in the center, but once I realized how textured the embossing powder was, I was kind of trying to figure out how I was going to put the sentiment on. And what I ultimately decided to do was to use some hot off the press heat resistant acetate. And I cut it down using a Lawn Fawn rectangle square, or excuse me, Lawn Fawn rectangle die. And I decided to go ahead and put my fish down and then place that on top. And with the heat resistant acetate, I can heat emboss on it. So it kind of gave a complete covering for it. And once again, because of the texture of the embossing powder, I wanted to make sure that my little fish were going to stick. So I at first was using a tape runner, and then I tried some Gina Connect glue. And I ultimately decided the easiest thing to do would be to run it through my Xyron sticker maker. And if you don't have one of these, you could definitely use a tape runner or some type of strong liquid adhesive. I just found that this would probably be the simplest thing to do. And these are the Xyron sticker makers, the smaller ones like this, they're very inexpensive, and you can find them even at like Target, places like that, Walmart. So my fish were pretty flat just because they're completely inked. So I decided to go in with my tonic shimmer pen and give them a little bit of shimmer. So that way when the acetate's over top of it, it kind of gave it a little bit more dimension and kind of gave it some shimmer and effect. So for my sentiment, I wanted to keep this card very bright and cheery, and so I decided to use Traffic Cone embossing powder from Brutus Monroe. It's a really bright orange, and at first I thought, ooh, this might be a little too bright, but I actually love the way it came out on the card. I think this card would be great for a little one. I think a child would love to get this card for their birthday. So with the heat resistant acetate, you still have to be careful and, you know, not hold the heat gun on it too long because it will still melt. It is still acetate, but it does hold up a little bit better to the heat, which is nice. So you can see there with the panel on top. And I will say, this was a challenge. I was trying to figure out the best way to get it on there, and it's acetate so that the adhesive didn't show through. So I used the tape runner at first, and it worked. This is a Therm web tape runner. I said something heavy on it, but what I ended up doing ultimately was taking some small sticky glue dots and putting those on the four corners, and that held it tremendously better. So that's what I ended up using to get that to stick. So that is card number 2, bright cheery card. Card number 3, I decided to use the panel that came in the kit that the stamps and dies were attached to, and there were 2 sides to it. So I wanted to use a scuba diver again, and there's a sentiment that says, I would swim the 7 seas to find you, and I loved how this was kind of a dark, really deep underwater scene, and so I thought that sentiment would be great. So I'm using the School of Fish, the scuba diver, and then also the Trail of Bubbles that I didn't end up using in the first card. And I originally was going to stamp this with Stays On ink, and if you have black Stays On ink, I think that would be a better ink to use. However, when I went to stamp it, mine was completely dry. So I ended up using the VersaFine Black, which worked. I just had to be really careful because the backing has a gloss coating to it. And so I had to be careful not to move it around and touch any part that I had inked yet. So the kit came with these gorgeous bubbles. They're almost like flat back clear pearls. And they came in a bunch of different sizes. They were in green and blue, and just small ones and medium and large, and they fit perfectly over the bubbles that I'd stamped. So I pulled out all of the blue ones, laid them down with my jewel picker, and then I went in with some Gina K Connect glue and just put a tiny dot on there and added the little bubbles to give them some shine, just to give this card a little bit of something extra, and that was it. This card was very simple. I love the way it turned out. The bubbles, I thought, gave it a really cool effect. The picture really doesn't do it justice to what it looks like in person. So for card number 4, this is a really cool aquarium die that came with the set. And I decided that I wanted to kind of do the same thing I did on the first card with a bunch of the fish, but this time I wanted to heat emboss them all. So I gathered up a bunch of different colors of heat embossing powder. And I've got a variety of companies. I've got some from Ranger and some from my previous Hero Arts kit. I've got some Brutus Monroe, some Nuvo, some Wow. I just went through all of my colors of embossing powder. And I also have a Sandcastle embossing powder from Brutus Monroe that I'm going to use to stamp out a Sandcastle, which I don't actually end up using in the card, but I'm also going to use it for the back panel of the card. So I just took some Neenah 80-pound that I already had cut down, pre-cut, and I cut them into smaller strips because I wanted to go through and do all of my embossing as far as putting the powders on first and then heat set them all at the same time. And because I knew I was going to be die cutting them, I am going to use my anti-static powder tool, but it really didn't matter if the heat embossing powder strayed. I didn't spend time with the paintbrush, getting rid of the extras, because I knew I was going to die cut the image. This one is one of my favorites, the big jellyfish, and I could not fit him into this card, although he is the star of my 5th card, so I'll show you that when we get there. But I am using the Ranger blue for that one, and then I'm also going to use the Wow Banana Split for the yellow one. So the aquarium die is supposed to be meant just for that. It's an aquarium, so you're looking into it. I've seen cards where they've used acetate on it, and I wanted to use it a little bit differently. So I'm doing a background here, and I'm going to use the sand embossing powder. So I am using a Versamark embossing pen, and these are very inexpensive, and it's not something that I use a lot, but when I need it, like in this instance, I'm very happy that I have it. So I just went through and drew a line where I wanted kind of the curves of the sand to be, and then I'm taking my embossing pad and just touching that down underneath. So I'm going to take the sand embossing powder, and this is a really cool embossing powder. It's very textured, and there are a couple different companies that have some of this, and I think Hero Arts actually last summer put some in a kit, and I don't have any of that left, but I do. Brutus Monroe sells it all the time, so this is what I'm using for this one, and you can see it there with the Sandcastle. So I'm just bringing all of my embossed images up front, and I'm going to heat emboss them all at the same time. And I will say I did go back over this and add a second coating of the sand once I had everything heat embossed. I just felt like it needed a little bit more dimension and texture. So I'm going to go through and heat emboss all of my little images and cut them out. And with the aquarium die, I cut that out on white cardstock, and then what I do is I take the blue water and the sea glass reactive ink. I love those little turtles. And for those turtles, I actually used Emerald City embossing powder, which has like a gold color, so it came out great. So you can see here what I did is I took that outer dye and I covered it with reactive blue water and sea glass, and then I sprayed it. And I didn't do it really dark. I just kind of put it in different areas where I wanted the ink. So this is supposed to be an aquarium that you're looking into, and you'll see that when I'm doing it, there are some, like the little starfish I put on the outside, some of the creatures, some of the little fish, and the plants and stuff. I am going to, like the little crab, kind of put them on the outside. So I didn't use the acetate. I didn't really use it as like you're looking at an aquarium. I just kind of did it like you're looking into the ocean. And, you know, it is an aquarium die, but I love one of the things that Christopher Allen from Brutus Menor says is create your own ending. So that's kind of what I did here. I just went through and used the die how I wanted to use it. And I think it turned out great. I love this card. I think it's really bright and cheerful. So I have my little shark up there, and he will actually be removed. I liked him up there, but he just wasn't quite colorful enough, so I'm going to remove him and add the little stingray in. And the turtles, those are my favorites. They were just so cute with the mama and then the two little ones going behind. So I'm just kind of going through, and the poor jellyfish, I tried and tried to get those to go in there, and they didn't make it. They just were not going to make it onto this card. So I was trying to tuck the tiny shark. You can see the die for that one was really small, and it shifted when I was running it through my die cut machine. So there was a lot of white on top. So what I ended up doing was just cutting some of that down, fussy cutting it with my scissors. So you can see the shark disappeared, and now I'm adding in the stingray, the bright pink stingray. And when I glued the aquarium piece down, I only did the outer edges because I wanted to be able to tuck some fish in up underneath some of the seaweed and things that actually came with the die. And I also, at this point, I'm taking my black Jelly Roll pen, and I was going in and just giving each of the little critters eyes. I felt like they needed something, and they're solid images, but I felt like going in and just giving them a little eye, giving the little crab 2 eyes would really make them pop, and I like the way it came out. So I'm taking this and adding it to a Nina 110-pound card base, A2 size. All of my cards are A2 size. And I'm using my Gina K Connect glue. And I love to use a liquid adhesive because it gives me time to shift it and kind of move it around. I am horrible at getting cards to line up correctly on the panels. Can't tell you how many panels I've wasted. And so I love using the Connect glue or any type of liquid adhesive. And that is card number 4. So I love the brightness and colors of the little fish. So for card number 5, I decided I wanted to do a shaker card. So there is a sentiment that says with waves of appreciation, and I used a circle die and cut out with the same heat resistant acetate, and I heat embossed with Raven black embossing powder, and I put that on in the center of the circle, and that's going to be my acetate for my shaker feature. So I inked up a background, which, like I said, I left that out because it's the same inking that I did for the first panel. And I'm using a mermaid tail stencil to go in. I just wanted some soft waves because the sentiment says with waves of appreciation. I wanted to give some little waves in here, but I didn't want to use the traditional wave stencil that just makes the line waves, if that makes sense. So I wanted to use this one, and I'm going in and adding some ink, using my blending brushes, and just kind of lifting it up to see what I have. And I didn't want it to be perfect. I didn't want the ink to be blended perfectly because it's not. If you look in the ocean, it's got all kinds of different colors, and so I wanted it to have that variation. So here my jellyfish are making it onto a card finally. I actually heat embossed one out of Garden Patina from Ranger, and the other one is, I think it's the Wow embossing powder. I think it's the Process Blue, Primary Blue is what that one is. So I used this same circle die to cut out the center, and I'm going to hang on to that piece there because I'm going to use it as my background. I'm going to show you how I line that up here in a moment. So for this shaker card, I decided instead of using double adhesive foam tape that I would use fun foam. So I cut out 2 layers, and typically I only do one when I use fun foam, but because these were like flatback pearls, clear flatbacks, they had a lot of dimension to them. So I needed enough room for them to be able to move around. So I added my 2 fun foams, and what I did is I just laid the circle die down and kind of marked where I needed to run it through my die cut machine and then put it on the panel. So what I was doing there is where the bag opens is sticky, and the pearls kept sticking to it. So what I did is I just took my anti-static powder tool and used it on the stickiness, and now they float out easily. So once I have everything in there, what I'm doing is I'm taking that piece and I'm just setting it on top of the pearls. And I've added some adhesive to it, and I'm going to take a white panel. This is Nina 80-pound white cardstock, and I'm going to pick it up, so then that way I know exactly where that is, so I know that it's going to cover up the hole where I need it to. And I am using some Gina K Connect glue to put my panel on there so everything will line up. Sorry about my head getting in the way. I kind of had to stand up to make sure it was on there even. And there we go. So now all that's left to do is just add on our jellyfish, which I love the colors of these. I thought they came out so cute. This card and the first one were probably two of my favorites, and really they were the most simple. I love making shaker cards. I hadn't made any in a while, and I love just a simple shaker card. Thought it was really fun. And we all have those people in our lives that we appreciate, so this is a card that will be easy to give out and give somebody happiness. And that is card number 5. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I had so much fun making it. Like I said, it's been a long time since I've done a 5 cards 1 kit, and I was really excited to have some time to do one. So I think the kit is still available. If it is, I will link the information down below. I highly encourage you to go grab it. If this one's not available, check out all the My Monthly Hero kits. They are an amazing value for what you get in the kit. It's usually $70 or $80 worth of stuff that you get for $34.99. And when you subscribe, you can also go in and purchase additional things before they ship your kit, and you do not have to pay additional shipping, which is kind of nice. So I'm just showing you all the different cards here. And I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did and you're not a subscriber, I hope that you'll subscribe for future videos and give it a thumbs up. Thank you so much and have a great day.